My name is Karen Tiegs, and I'm a supply priest in the Episcopal Diocese of Western Oregon. Including my own, I reside in a household with 11 heartbeats. An exchange between Armand Gamache and Père Sébastien in Louise Penny's novel Bury Your Dead goes like this. There are a lot of reasons for murder, Chief Inspector, as you know. Actually, mon père, I found there's only one. Beneath all the justifications, all the psychology, all the motives given, like revenge or greed or jealousy, there lies the real reason. And what's that? Fear. Fear of losing what you have or not getting what you want. Fear of losing what you have or not getting what you want is an affliction that touches each and every person in the world at some point or another in the course of being human, isn't it? This year I was diagnosed with a stage 4 breast cancer. This came after a solid year of treatment for a stage 3 breast cancer a few years ago. It was a shock to discover it had returned. In the ensuing months, I've discovered that facing my fear is actually easier than hiding and hoping it would go away. I'm very grateful that I was paying attention to my body. I remember it seeming a little bit harder to take a breath this time a year ago. I thought maybe I was imagining it. Then in January, I noticed that I was wheezing the tiniest bit on the exhale when I laid down to sleep at night. In February, I finally went to my primary care doctor. We both thought that maybe it was a leftover infection from the winter because I live in a petri dish with my husband, 4 school-age kids, 4 cats, and a young dog. Colds and flus of varying severity had been making their way through our household with some regularity. When 2 weeks of steroids didn't make the wheezing go away, I went back to the doctor. An X-ray made us suspicious. On St. Patrick's Day, I went for a PET CT scan with the words and melody of our beloved hymn in my head. I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity. A bronchoscopy at the beginning of April confirmed that at least a dozen lymph nodes near my lungs were filled with the same breast cancer that originally attacked me from within. A stage 4 cancer diagnosis was arguably one of my worst fears. What I've come to understand is that, for myself, it's not as bad as I thought. That is not to minimize the challenges that come with it, or the toll of a part-time job as a medical patient. It is to right-size it, and to learn not to live in the shadows of the fear. The shadows of my fear, the fear that my life will be much shorter than my children's needs and my own desires, is very real. It's a fear that I now face every day. I've been working to port-size my fear. That is, 10 days after my diagnosis last April, I underwent an operation to install a medical device on my upper chest under my skin that allows my medical team to safely and easily start an infusion IV without my having to endure multiple jabs all over my arms every 3 weeks. I'm working to put boundaries around my fear such that it stays the size of that chemo port, the unbidden and unwanted port that is now a part of my body and serving to extend my life. The medication I receive through that port has, so far, served to shrink or even eradicate the tumors such that they haven't been visible on my scans since that initial one back in March. And still, the fear that my cancer will evolve beyond the capabilities of medicine remains. What is also true is that, in comparison to the entirety of my physical body, that chemo port is a small fraction of my mass. And the fears that I now carry because of cancer have also become catalysts for me, spurring me to life, spurring me to live while I'm alive. My fears are not magicians. In and of themselves, they hold no power. In and of itself, fear cannot predict or enact the future. Proverbs chapter 9 verse 10 says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That passage has long bothered me. And yet now, I see that fear is just that. It's a beginning. It's a beginning of relationship. And most of the important relationships in our lives begin with some form of fear. Right-sized fear spurs us to action and to connection. Fear is not the main point of our lives, and it's not the place we are called to dwell in. We're called to dwell in love. At the very end of the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells his friends to go out into the world, and he promises to be with them. Jesus doesn't tell us to never be afraid. What Jesus does promise is presence and connection. Presence and connection with ourselves, with others, with God. Presence and connection are what hold us in and through our worst fears.
This has been a production of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Portland, Oregon. Music for this podcast was performed by James Walton. For more information about Trinity and our community, go to www.trinity-episcopal.org.